About 6 weeks ago, my family and I headed down to Sydney at the start of January 2023. We thought it'd be fun to head down to the Emerald City for a nice little summer holiday break. Unfortunately, the weather was not very kind to us. It was not very summery at all. It was very rainy and it was actually quite chilly as well for us Queenslanders. I took quite a few cameras, took a couple of digital cameras, and I also took, of course, my film cameras. The first few days, I didn't really get that much photography done, just a bit here and there. It was really down to the last day before we flew out. That's when the sunny weather hit, and that's when I got most of the photos in this video shot. So I'm going to talk you through now photos mostly from the Minolta TC-1 with Adox Color Mission. Some amazing photos on a beautiful summery, sunny Sydney day. But the other two cameras, I'm also going to show you little sneak peeks from the Fujifilm Natura Black and also the Lomography Oktomat. So the first three photos I'll show you are from the Fujifilm Natura. I was shooting Cinestill 400D in it. I put an ISO 1600 label on the canister. So I was shooting it at ISO 1600 and I asked my lab to develop it, or to push it 2 stops in the dev. So here are 3 photos from the Fujifilm Natura. The first one here was a very sort of overcast, sort of windy, rainy evening in Sydney. We went over to Luna Park. We thought, yeah, the kids can have some rides, have a bit of fun. Luna Park was closed the night we were there in the middle of the summer holidays. Couldn't quite get my head around that, why they would be closed in the middle of summer holidays. So this is the view from the ferry terminal at Luna Park, Milson's Point. So we're looking back towards Sydney Harbour here. So you've got the Sydney Harbour Bridge, you've got the Opera House, you've got a bit of Circular Quay, a bit of Darling Harbour there as well towards the right of the photo. So yeah, I really like this photo. It's very atmospheric and it's got some really nice colours here. And I think the Natura has done really well there. And next up are a couple of photos taken at Luna Park. Well, the bits of Luna Park that we could actually access from the outside because it was closed. So here is a Ferris wheel here. I was able to get a shot right under the Ferris wheel looking up. I really like this shot with the lights and a nice bit of blue sky there in the background. And also here is a close-up of the famous Luna Park face. And I really like this. Usually quite often, you know, you'll get a view of Luna Park, a photo that's quite far away, getting in the whole thing. But this is right up close, right underneath it, looking up towards the sky. And you've sort of got this mouth and the nose and the eyes. And yeah, I really like that shot as well. So there you go. There are 3 shots from the Fujifilm Natura. But now let's head on to the main draw of this video. It is the photos taken with the Minolta TC-1 and Adox Color Mission. So as I said, the weather was pretty crappy, pretty rubbish most of our trip. It actually rained most of the time. I met up with some cool photographers on the Saturday morning, but unfortunately we didn't actually get to shoot together. We just sat around and had a coffee and talked about cameras and photography because it was raining. And it really wasn't until, like I said, the last day before we flew out that the sun and summer finally arrived in Sydney for us. So we headed out to Watson's Bay. I wanted to walk out to the lighthouse out there, and I had a roll of Ektar loaded up in my Minolta TC-1, which has been one of my favorite point and shoots lately. I finished off the roll of Ektar. There are some okay shots on it. I wasn't particularly wowed by them. And then I loaded up a roll of Adox Color Mission. Now, of course, Adox Color Mission is the film that was released last year by German company Adox. It was released, I think it was around May 2022. The first 2 videos on this channel were actually all about the film. So if you go back all the way in my videos, you'll see my initial reaction and my initial review of the film there. I sort of shot maybe 3 or 4 rolls of it in May, June last year. Then I kind of forgot about it. I sold a couple of rolls off because I ordered quite a few because the postage was expensive. And then I just left the rest in my fridge and moved on to other things like Cinestill 400D. So it's sort of been a while me coming back to Adox Color Mission, but I loaded up a roll in my Minolta TC-1 and wow, I love the shots that I took on this camera with Adox Color Mission in Sydney. So I'm going to talk you through a few of them now. So here we are at the lighthouse and I've loaded up Color Mission and bang, there we go. There's a lovely close-up of the lighthouse there. Look at those reds and the blues there. I really love this film. I really like the way that looks there. And here is another picture of the lighthouse with the Minolta TC-1 Adox Color Mission. The reds here look a little bit deeper, but yeah, it's a really nice exposure. And you've got the telltale sort of signs that this is the TC-1, that kind of vignetting on the sides there. I think it looks really nice. Now on the way back, I was of course taking photos as well, and there was a lovely little beach here. And I sort of noticed that on the way to the lighthouse, but I didn't think much of it. On the way back, I sort of noticed that there were people at this beach without clothes on. So obviously it's a bit of a naturist beach. And yeah, I mean, I've never skinny dipped in my life, but I thought, maybe one day if it's nice and warm and the sea's warm and there's not many people around, Matt Loves Cameras could strip off and enter Sydney Harbour au naturel. Who knows? But watch out for that, Sydney. I might come back one day and do that. This is Camp Cove Beach. So this is the beach where there was lots of families, lots of people enjoying themselves. There were refreshments, there were beach towels, there were ice creams. Really beautiful, typical Sydney summer scene here. And look at that water, it just looks absolutely fantastic. And the colors here of the beach and the buildings and the sky, really love this shot. This is on the way back as well. This is the bit of the walk on the way back to Watson's Bay Ferry, where it sort of goes through a few sort of streets. All the streets were jammed, of course, with people parking their cars. They all wanted a bit of beach action. And look at this car here. I love this car. Look at the minty greens of this car. It's a beautiful, beautiful automobile. Really lovely, nice lines and colors. And I can't remember even what kind of car it was, other than it's a very, very attractive looking car. This is now when we are leaving Watson's Bay. This is taken from the ferry. So you can see, yeah, beautiful sand there. The sand looks quite bright. It's not overexposed though. It looks pretty good. And you can also see at the top there, I'm not sure if that's a light leak or a cloud, but there's like a whitey pinky sort of little object there at the top of the frame, which is kind of interesting. Now the Minolta TC-1 does have a light leak, although it's not actually in that position. So I'm not exactly sure what that is, but I'll keep an eye on that and see if any other photos in the future get the same sort of light leak. Here is the second one from when we were taking off from the ferry, and you can actually see the Watson's Bay sort of ferry terminal, I guess you'd call it there. Beautiful blues. I really love this film. It looks just, yeah, it's very atmospheric. It's got a lot of character, this film. That's what I like about it. This next one is taken on the ferry, and so I really love the greens and the yellows and the blacks of the Sydney ferries. They're very distinctive looking, and yeah, you've got the rope there and the nice sort of lines, the yellow and black sort of lines there of the ferry. When I got back to Circular Quay, I took a couple of photos as well. So this is taken on the ferry with a view of the ferry in the foreground, and of course Sydney Harbour Bridge there in the background. The next one is a view of Circular Quay, where all the ferries go off to different parts of Sydney. Really like that one. A little bit overexposed there in the highlights, the clouds there, but still I really like that one. And the next one is where my wife and kids went to the Gillian Cafe, the Gillian Chocolate Cafe. I sort of expected, those Gillian seashell chocolates. I kind of expected that when we went there, we would get drinks with the chocolates, but the chocolates were nowhere to be seen, so I'm not sure what the whole thing with that cafe is. As we were waiting for our drinks, I'm very impatient, so I got my camera and I went for a little walk, and I took this picture of Sydney Opera House. When I was taking the photo, I was thinking, oh, this isn't going to turn out very well. Like, I haven't got enough time to go all the way to the top of the stairs because the drinks will come out soon. But, actually seeing this photo here, I really like it. I really like the people there. You can sort of make out there are people. And, you've got the nice vignette coming in on the sides and the nice sails of the Sydney Opera House there. So, yeah, I really like that photo. If you're enjoying this video, I would love it if you gave it a thumbs up or leave a comment. There's also other ways you can support this channel. You can buy me a coffee, or you can give me a super thanks. There's details on how to do that in the video description. Also, make sure you sign up for my free weekly photography newsletter, mattlovescameras.substack.com. After the Gillian Cafe, we got back on the tram and we headed up to George Street. My daughter wanted to go shopping one last time. And just as we got off the tram, the afternoon sunlight was streaming in from the west. And yeah, so there's a lot of trees in Sydney CBD. And, at certain parts of the CBD, you just get this beautiful trees backlit by the afternoon sun. And here are two photos in a row. I took one horizontal and one vertical. Here's the vertical one. Look at that beautiful backlit tree with a couple of buildings behind it there. And then the next one is the horizontal one. I really love these photos, and yeah, I really love this film and this camera combination. This next one is up around Haymarket, I think it was. It's one of the tram stops. And yeah, there's just this sort of old building here. It's quite tall. I took this photo at f16. It was bright sunny days, so I really had to take it at that f16 without sort of blowing out the highlights. But I really like it. It's lovely and sharp. It's got that, TC1 look to it. And the sort of lines of the building sort of draw you into the frame, and the blues look fantastic here again. Walking back to our hotel right near Central, there's actually a little church here, Church of England Church, and I really like this red door. I'd seen it a couple of times, and this time I actually stopped to take a photo of it. And as I was taking a photo, the priest walked past and sort of smiled, nodded, and gave me the thumbs up kind of thing, which was nice because sometimes when you're out taking photos, people look at you suspiciously and wondering what you're doing. I've had that a few times lately, unfortunately. But yeah, the priest looked pretty chuffed that I was taking a photo of the church. So there you go. So you got a nice bit of, shadows here, and also the bright sort of sunlight on the red door. I think that looks fantastic. And the final photo is at Sydney Airport that same afternoon. We just checked in and gone through security, and I thought I have this nice sort of view here of a tarmac with some planes, and I took a picture of the Virgin plane here on the tarmac at Sydney Airport. So I really liked that one as well. So there you go, there is a selection of shots I took in Sydney on my Minolta TC-1 with Adox Color Mission. I really like that combination. I think it's a really good combination of camera and film. The TC-1 is definitely one of my favorite point and shoots lately. I'll be doing a review of that on this channel very soon. I've only shot 5 rolls with it so far, so I feel like I'm not quite at the point where I want to do a review, but hopefully in another couple of months I'll be there. But wait, there's more. I've got 2 bonus shots for you in this video of Sydney on film. I also took down my Lomography Oktomat. It's a plastic camera with 8 lenses and 8 shutters, like an action camera. And every time you press the shutter, 8 shutters fire off and you get 8 images on one frame of 35mm film. So this camera came out around 2012, I think, sold by Lomography. They discontinued it a long time ago. I think from what everyone sort of says about the camera, there were significant issues with the camera breaking. I've actually got 3 of them. I think only 1 of them works. So when you're making a camera out of plastic, of course, things can go wrong and they don't last that long sometimes, unfortunately. But it is a lot of fun. Now, I've actually done TikToks and Instagram Reels about this camera, and I think like over 500,000 people have seen it. It kind of went crazy. So here are a couple of shots from the Oktomat. So the first one here is at Hornby Lighthouse. I actually just took this image of Sydney Harbour, the entrance to Sydney Harbour, and you can sort of see how you can get repeating sort of patterns with the Oktomat. You can use it as an action camera, someone running past, or a dog running in a field, or a horse, or something like that. But you can also just take it sort of, to take cool, interesting, creative photos with repeating patterns. So I kind of really like this one here. This is just like Sydney Harbour. And the next one here is of Sydney Opera House. Now this was taken from the ferry, and it's really kind of tricky to take photos with the Oktomat because there's no viewfinder. There's like a sports viewfinder. It sort of flips up on top of the camera, but it's kind of useless. So yeah, your framing, it's really, really tricky to frame photos with the Oktomat. But this one here of the Opera House, I really love this. It's got the repeating sails of the Opera House there, sort of going frame to frame. And I'm actually really, really happy with the way I framed it. A bit of luck there, I think. So yeah, very nice. There is a bit of a light leak you can see there on the left-hand side of the frame. The top left one in particular is a bit pink, which means that I'm thinking there's a bit of a light leak coming from the back of the camera somewhere, so I might have to tape it up. But yeah, it is a cool camera to play around with. So that's it for my video of Sydney on film, the January 2023 edition. Most of the photos were taken on the one day where we had some nice sunny, bright weather in Sydney. Hopefully next time I head back to Sydney, the weather will be kinder to me. What did you think of the photos? I would love to hear your thoughts. Have you shot Color Mission? Have you used the Minolta TC-1? Let me know everything in the comments.